I would describe Andy as a rider as incredibly smooth.
He rode a motorcycle with more grace than any man on earth.
Whenever I think of Andy, I think of the smile.
Stood up on the foot pegs everywhere, rarely made a mistake.
He was the sort of guy that if you needed him to be there, he could be 1,000 kilometres away and he'd be there the next day.
Desert motocross racer Andy Caldecott will always be remembered as a legend of our sport. Born on the 9th of August 1964, Andy was raised in the small rural town of Keith, South Australia. Andy started his motorcycling career in 1974 on a mini bike, where he won and podiumed at various titles. Andy was a 17 times Australian Classic Motocross champion, 2 times World Classic Motocross champion, and later on in his career he became a successful off-road racer, winning 4 consecutive Australian Safari titles, podiumed at the Finke Desert Race, and was a 3-time starter in the Paris to Dakar Rally, finishing 6th outright in the 2005, winning 2 stages.
Andy Caldecott, much like myself, was just a kid that grew up around motorcycles. He's from, as we all know, a small town in Keith, and there was definitely a background of motorcycling in his family. And I recall, racing with Andy at the Junior Nationals a number of occasions.
He was just a great kid. I think he got his first motorbike at age 8 and racing at age 10. Caldecott Transport was just on the western side of town, and after school at night there was a great heap of rubble south of Keith, and you'd hear the motorbike every night, up and down, up and down.
In 1985, after competing at the top level for many years in motocross and supercross, Andy decided to retire from racing and made the decision to focus on the family business, Caldecott Motors and Keith Parcel Freight.
So in 1985, both of us actually stopped racing competitively. I moved to Western Australia and Andy moved into the family business and took that over.
No, absolutely. I mean, he was an incredibly famous rider at that point. He was very well known, Mr. Motocross rider, a fantastic rider in his own right. And to give that up and just go, no, my family and my business is now more important, I need to change focus and go on to that. It just shows his character. His family was really important to him.
He did watch Dakar a bit, when the times of the years when you get to see it. And he mentioned to me one time, we should go and do Condo, 750, the 2-day. I mean, what do you mean we? Well, I need help. I need someone to give us a hand, and that's sort of where it all started. That was weird because it was a bog stock motorcycle and he just went up for a giggle and came home second outright.
I first got to know Andy the first Australian Safari I rode in 2000, it was 2000, the Alice Springs to Darwin one, and he obviously won that year, and that was my first year.
Well, when the announcement was made that he was going to have a crack at the Dakar, there was quite a considerable amount of money needed to be raised and all the bits and pieces that went with it. So the community rallied together and we had a big auction night, and we auctioned off lots of memorabilia that he put up of his own to be sold, and people donated all sorts of things, and it was all sold to raise some money to get him over the line.
We jumped into a lift in a motel in Barcelona, and Heinz kindergartner said to both of us, "Oh, you guys are the Aussies." And to be in that lift with, there was 2 or 3 other world champions in that lift, it was an eye-opener. Andy turned to me and he said, "I think we might have made it."
At Dakar, it's not just their riding ability, it's the ability to survive and to keep the bike running, to know where you're going, and I think they were elements that he had really perfected. I think that's why he was so successful in that rally style of racing.
Well, he always said to me, and him and I rode a lot together, and he always said, I need to slow down to go faster. And it didn't resonate at the time. I always thought he was just being a clown trying to slow me down, not that anybody could ever catch him. But he was right, and he was incredibly smooth. You'd watch him ride through a paddock and think he's actually not going quick until you put a watch on him and realise that he was quicker than anybody by miles.
On January 9th, 2006, at age 41, Andy was tragically killed while competing in the Paris to Dakar rally on the 9th stage.
Yeah, so the day that I heard Andy had passed away at the Paris Dakar, we were actually up the north coast of New South Wales on a family holiday. And every night, me and my boys would watch the Paris Dakar and watch how he was going. And it was actually prior to the telecast we knew, because my mum had heard it on ABC radio and she'd rung me through the day.
Well, my son-in-law rang me at 7 in the morning because he knew we were involved with Andy, and when he told me, I just said, hell no, this can't be right. He was supposed to come home holding the trophy up, and we were going to have one big hell of a party. And this was just throughout the world, rocked the world, and certainly rocked our little town.
Nearly 10 years since Andy left us, his family and friends and fans refused to let his memory fade.
Yeah, look, I remember the good times with Andy. I remember travelling with him late at night, going to Melbourne, in a little convoy. Every now and again I get to go to Keith. I've been a couple of times now and caught up with his family and friends, and which is really nice. And yeah, I think of Andy quite often.
Probably the lasting image that I've got is sitting at Senegal after the Dakar 2005 rally. We're both sitting there still in our riding gear, finished the day, finished the rally, and we just sat there on the beach and it was dead silence, just sitting there thinking. I think we're both thinking what we'd both achieved at the time, and it was pretty inspiring. That's one lasting memory I'll have forever.
We left main control one year. Carl Fuller was the clerk of the course, and he was yelling and screaming at us because we hadn't left yet. We rode out of the Robertstown Oval down the main street, turned left. There's a whole heap of local kids in the corner, and Andy was a bit renowned for being a bit of a show pony to the kids. So I was in front of him. He pops his wheel stand. Thought, oh yeah, typical Andy, can show off for the kids, that's okay. And then I hear the grating sound and turn around and see the bike cartwheeling its way down the road and takes both of us out. So we'd gone about 450 kilometres out on the main street, and we're both out in the main street. His bike's broken, he's got blood pouring out of his leg everywhere. And I remember both of us lying on the road looking at each other, absolutely killing ourselves laughing. And that's the memory I have of him. Never ever took anything too seriously.
The induction into the Hall of Fame, I suppose Andy would be looking down and thinking what's all the fuss about. And be quite humble about the whole thing. But also I know his father would be very, very proud of his achievements and the whole, very proud of the whole occasion.
Oh, he'd be immensely embarrassed. This would be one of those things where he would go, I don't even want to go, it's not me. But all the people around him would be so proud of him.
He probably wouldn't have understood what all the fuss is about. But I'm sure deep down he would have been very honoured.
For his motocross and off-road accomplishments and the legacy he left in our sport, the Motorcycling South Australia Hall of Fame welcomes Andy Caldecott.